Alhamdulillah, wassalam, wassalam ala wa rasulullah. Welcome to our the kickoff for our classes for today. This is my class on how to perform the prayer from A to Z. And we have been focusing in on the menses, the rules and guidelines in regards to the menses. Today, what I want to do, I want to wrap up the menses by, again, going into a little bit more detail. About istihada, which is known as non-stop bleeding. So let me put this PowerPoint on the screen. I'm going to get directly to it today. And then I'm going to quiz you guys. I hope all women are paying attention to me today as you were yesterday, because tomorrow I'm going to give y'all a quiz to cover everything about menses from A to Z. So let me put the PowerPoint up on the screen, and remember to take notes. To take notes, sisters, brothers too. So if you have to answer a question about a woman's menses or explain to your daughters about their menses, you do it correctly and not based like these other brothers are doing. Okay, there are some things that are forbidden to do when you're on your menses. And this is one of the number one questions we get all the time. Can I read the Quran? Can I touch the Quran? Can I do this? Can I? Well, what are the things that we are forbidden to do when a woman is on her menses or when she's suffering from a postnatal birth, bleeding from that? Well, I want every woman listening to me to understand all the same things that is forbidden for a person who is in a state of impurity from sex or a wet dream are the same things forbidden for women on their menses or women after childbirth, because these are considered major impurities. So whatever you cannot do after having relations with your husband, whatever you cannot do after relations, you cannot do them on your menses or after having a baby either. But there's also two more prohibitions, such as fasting. You cannot fast on your menses. You cannot fast when you're bleeding or from your menses. So when Ramadan happens, because Ramadan is the only obligatory fast that we Muslims have, when your menses comes, you have to make those days up later. Where's my Dalio? Well, one of the companions asked Aisha, she said, why do we have to make up our fast because of our menses, but we don't have to make up the prayers? She said, because the Prophet told us to. We were ordered to make up the fast and not the prayer. So that's it. Don't try to psychoanalyze, because that's what women are doing today. We're living in the days of so-called Muslim feminism. Women trying to be imams now. They are imams. They're calling adans. They're going to the hospitals, visiting the sick Muslims, making ruqya over Muslim men that aren't mahram to him. They're doing all that silly stuff. So now they're going so far, some of them, to say, well, if you got to make up the fast, you got to make up the prayers. Well, where's the evidence? Okay. Also, when a woman is bleeding down there, she cannot have sexual relations with her husband. We have the hadith where a Jewish woman was menstruating. Whenever the Jewish women would start their period, their husbands would not eat or sleep with her. They make the women basically stay in a barn or something. So the companions asked the Prophet about that. And that's when Allah said, if they ask you about the menses, tell them it's a sickness. So leave the women alone at those times. Do not have sexual relationships with them until they are clean. And when they have purified themselves by taking a ghusl, then you can approach them any way you like. Allah loves those who turn to him. So what Allah is saying is, you don't have to put a woman in a barn. We're not impure that way. The only thing a man cannot do is have relations with his wife. But he can touch her, kiss her, eat with her, sleep with her, and all of that. Where's my evidence, Sister Layla? Right here. That same book that you guys are trying to refute. Bukhari. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said a man can do everything with his wife when she's on her menses except have intercourse. Okay? Listen to what Imam An-Nawawi says. He was one of the scholars of Hadith. He said if a Muslim believes it is permissible to have relations with his wife while she's on her menses, you become an apostate. That's how serious a sin that is, guys. But if you do it not thinking that it's permissible, but out of forgetfulness or just weakness, then there is no sin. If you do it knowingly out of weakness, there is an expiation for it. But if you do it out of forgetfulness or not knowing it was a sin, then there is no expiation for it. So I want you brothers and I want you sisters to understand. You cannot have relations with your wives when they're on their period. If it's so tempting for you when you're that time of month, then go to the mosque and stay away from her. But this is a major sin in Islam to have relationships with your wives on their menses. So this is a no-no. Do not do it. It's bad, it's dirty, it's foul, and it causes all kind of problems later on too that you don't want to know about. So don't do it. All right? Okay, but a man can touch his wife. This misconception that some of these modern day so-called scholars have, where they tell you that if you touch a woman, whether she's a mahram or not, or even if she's not, or a kafir, she breaks your fast, your wudu, and everything else. This is not true. Or if you touch a woman on her menses, it invalidates your prayer. All of this is not true. Because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to touch his wives when they were on their menses. But he would tell them to cover their private area. That's all. We have hadiths from Aisha and Salama telling us how if the Prophet, we have a hadith here from Bukhari that a person asked her, and this was a man, Masruq ibn al-Aida. Like I told you, the men, Aisha was a teacher, a scholar of Islam. She had men that come and ask her questions too. They'd sit outside her door or her window and ask, like you guys are sitting outside my door, which is my computer, and asking me. So Ibn al-Ajda, he asked Aisha, he said, what is off limits to me sexually when my wife is on her period? Aisha said, nothing except the vagina. He said, what? She said, just what I said. You can do whatever you want except touch the vagina. In fact, she went in detail and said the Prophet, when he wanted to be with his wives and they were on their menses, they would put something. She said, we would put something over our vagina. And then we could do anything else but that. So these are the authentic hadiths. This has been Bukhari and also Abu Dawood. It's authentic. Okay? So cover your vagina when you're on your menses and you're around your husband. But you can do whatever else. So now let's speak about women who start their period and their bleeding doesn't stop. Islam defines this as bleeding outside the regular time. Or the Arabic word that you guys hear and don't know the meaning of, istihada. There's 3 instances in which a woman may bleed outside her regular time. In the first case, You know you are a woman that has a regular cycle. Most women have regular menses, but some of us don't. I didn't have a regular one. But most women, they know when their menses is going to occur every 30 days or 28 days or 26 days. So if you know, excuse me, I'm still sick. If you know that your regular menstrual cycle is about to start, and you have a specific number of days that you bleed. Some women have, just a specific number. I never bleed more than 10 days. I never bleed more than 7 days. I never bleed more than 5 days. Well, after those 5 days in, you're still bleeding. That's considered prolonged blood or istihada. In this case, if you have a regular cycle, and that means your menses is regular every month, you never bleed longer than those regular days of 10 days or 5 days. If the blood is light and not dark, like we talked about yesterday, if the blood has no smell, it has no clotting, and it's just a light color and it's just like spotting, in that case, that would be istihada. And that's based on the hadith of Salama, where the Prophet told her that if a woman encounters this, she should wait until the days that are normally her amount of time of bleeding have ended, and then she shouldn't pray or fast during those times. But instead, take a ghusl, put something around her vagina and pray. But again, you have to look at the color of the blood. Remember the hadith we talked about yesterday. Look at the color of the blood. If it's dark red, dark pink, muddy color, yellow, it has that smell, the clots. You guys know what I'm talking about, that dark yellow. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Then it's a menses. Your menses is just being prolonged for that month due to your nerves, something you ate or whatever. But if it's not that, it's just light. You don't even have cramps. No cramps, no cramping, no headache. That would be istihada. Okay? All right? If the blood is running, this is outside your normal days, the Prophet would command the women to look at the color of the blood. If it's not the color of the menses, with none of that other stuff, okay, then take a ghusl. Take a ghusl after her normal days of bleeding have ended. And then, she would do what we talked about before, wash her private part and make a wudu before every prayer. But again, that's if you meet the condition of istihada. The condition of istihada is the color of the blood, the smell, the texture, the pain. If none of that is happening, none of that stuff that comes with menses. Okay? There's some instances in which a woman doesn't know her period. Say, for example, you're 10 years old. Your 10-year-old daughter just started her cycle. She doesn't know how to determine what her menses days will be. So she's bleeding for 20 days because her body's getting accustomed to it. In that case, then she should count 7 days as a period. If she's bleeding 20 days, after the 7th day, and that color is gone, there are no cramps or any of that other stuff, then she would count those 7 days as her period, and then take a ghusl, and then start her prayers and stuff, wash her vagina and make a wudu before each prayer. And that's based on the hadith of Jamna bint Jahash. The Prophet told her that. And if it flows a little bit more, she can even combine. She can even combine her prayers. She can pray Dhuhr and Asr together. And then she can pray Maghrib and Isha together. because this is a sickness, which means something is wrong with you. And make sure you take your daughter to the doctor so the doctor can see if there's a problem with her ovaries or a problem. See how the prophet knew what he was talking about? Whenever we're sick, we can combine our prayers. How many of you women thought of that? If you really are suffering with istihada, those women can combine their prayers because it's not a menses, but something is wrong up there with them. And the spotting doesn't stop. It's a light spotting. It has no pain. It has no menses smell. It's not the color of it, but it's just light spotting. Something's wrong. I'm going to combine my prayers and I'm going to make a doctor's appointment and see what the heck is wrong with me. That's how we handle istihada. You make an appointment to get checked. Okay? And that's what the prophet meant when he said it's a broken vein. This is the sister that he told her to. He told Bent Josh, he said, it's a broken vein. That means something's wrong with you. He said you can combine your prayers. Okay? But something's wrong. Get checked out. They had a doctor. They had nurses. He told her, go get checked out. Something's wrong. Okay? And this is from Bukhari too. So for your daughters, the same thing. When your daughters start their menses, some of them may bleed for a long period of time. You know, take 7 of those days as the menses and the other days, as istihada, and make sure you take her to the doctor to make sure that everything's working fine with her down there. The third case of istihada is when a woman has a period, but she can't distinguish from the blood. The blood is all the same. That's the case I fell under. I started bleeding. My periods always lasted 14 days, but I kept going. And it was that same nasty color, the color of the menses, that dark color, that nasty color, that smelly color, that the clotting, okay? As the prophet said, if it is the color of that menses blood, you can tell, and you stay away from praying. Stay away from praying, and this is the dalil. Okay? So for you sisters whose blood bleeding is dark, you know the color of menses and the smell. You should not be praying. I don't care what these brothers on the internet are telling you. You shouldn't have been praying. You should have been booking it to the doctor. Because that's a sign of fibroids, cancer, something. Okay? And if you sisters catch it early, it can be treated. If you don't catch ovarian cancer, cervical cancer early, you can die. A lot of you women are waiting until you in stage 4 or stage 3 because you listening to these brothers on the internet and you've been bleeding like that for 6 months. Shame on you for being silly. Okay, you should have went to the doctor. Now you got to have a hysterectomy and pray that you don't die, that takes the cancer out. So it's all about the color of the blood, sisters. So any woman that falls in those categories, if you are suffering from istihada, you do not have to make a ghusl for every prayer. Instead, you just make one ghusl to purify yourself, and you wash your vagina for every prayer and make a wudu. Okay? Make a wudu for each prayer, whether you break it or not. And also, as the prophet said, keep the blood in check because it's light bleeding. Okay? That's why we wash the vagina and put on a pad, a Kotex or something, or a pad. Put a pad on while you pray. Okay? And don't make wudu before the prayer. You have to wash your vagina and make wudu at the time you're getting ready to pray. So I'm getting ready to pray right now, and I have real istihada, just light bleeding. I'm going to wash my vagina and make my wudu now, and now go pray. And in this case, you can resume relations with your husband, because istihada is not menses blood. It's not painful. It doesn't stink. It's not dirty. It's just a sign that something is going on up there, and it needs to be checked out. That's Allah's way of causing the body to alert us women that we got something wrong with us. It could be minor. Most times it is minor. And if you catch it in the beginning, even if it's an ovarian problem, they can check it. Even if it's cancer, if you catch it early, that's the most treatable cancer out there. But the key is to catch it in the beginning stage. Okay? So I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.